Nicole, it feels like there's a new playbook that a lot of staffing firms are playing from. When we look at how AI is augmenting the workforce and how it is sort of supercharging the modern recruiter, it feels like in a lot of ways, staffing firms have a new playbook that they're playing out of. What are you seeing over at Bullhorn?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think, a year, 2 years ago, the question was like, do we really need AI? Are we going to take this leap? Are we going to do it? And it's not really a question of if you do or not. Everyone's using it. If you think your people aren't using it, you're wrong. They're using it. And so what we're seeing at Bullhorn now is a wider discrepancy between people who are more hesitant to really dive in, who are using it but still dabbling, versus the people who are being really bold and taking this like leap into it and are just saying, you know what, it's here. It is going to have an impact. It's already having an impact. Let's go all in and let's get our teams going. Because like right now, the point that we're at right now, this is when the pack is separating, right? Like you've got people who are moving ahead really quickly and people who are lagging a little bit behind. They're still keeping up, but that gap is widening, right? And so I think when it comes to sort of looking at new playbooks, it's really about not if we're going to adopt AI, it's how we're going to adopt it and how we're going to use it. And it's really about being flexible and looking at your whole workflow, your whole set of processes and how you've been doing things and changing the way you think about that work. It's not just taking away admin work. It's actually changing what do we want our recruiters to be doing? How are we going to change the way we think about recruiting, the processes we're used to make the most of this new technology?
That's a thought that I keep coming back to that I hadn't thought about talking to you about here is if we adopt AI at such an aggressive level, what is our team going to do? What does the modern recruiter look like if sourcing and screening and initial conversations are all being offloaded to AI? Well, what does Brad the recruiter do all day?
Yeah. Well, Brad, the good news is your job's about to get a lot more fun. It's going to get a lot more meaningful to you because what you're spending time doing now is you are building relationships. You're bringing that human element in that AI can't replace, right? And so one of the things we talk about a lot at Bullhorn is like, okay, is AI here to replace people? No, it's not. It's here to do some work so that people can do more, better, more valuable work. If if Brad the recruiter is going to interview 5 people in one day, you're still going to interview 5 people in one day. But those people have already been pre-screened. They've already been matched, right? And so the 5 people you're spending time with are of much higher quality for the role you're trying to fill than the 5 people you would have been without AI, right? And I think another important role, and this gets really interesting as you think about like what types of people are recruitment firms going to be hiring. And what we've heard from some of our pioneer customers, so people who adopted our AI solution Amplify early, is they're actually looking at different skill sets than they used to, right? So experience in recruiting is still a plus, right? The experience relationship building, recognizing good talent, like that's still important, but flexibility and tech savviness is also really important. And what we have found is that with people who adopt AI early, when the AI is good, when it's built into your processes, it really helps junior recruiters and people without as much recruiting experience get up to speed really fast, right? And so I think what you're looking at is not just, it's not just people, it's not just that we're changing who we're looking for, but we are changing the role of the recruiter so that they're going to be more about relationships, but they need to have this technology portion where they're managing AI, right? Like they're managing agentic AI and they have to be able to do that in order to move at the clip that's expected in today's day and age.
And that's scary for some, right? I can picture the owner listening right now thinking, I get it and I hear you, but you want me to now adopt AI and get 20 recruiters, not only up to speed in what the modern recruiter looks like, but also up to speed in what all of these AI tools or in the raw foundation, what Claude or GPT, you want me to get them up to speed there too? How do I make that investment? Where do I get started? Yeah. What do you say in that situation?
Well, first of all, I would say that you're not alone because it's scary for everyone. There's probably a few people who are like, yes, new technology, but nobody loves ambiguity, right? Nobody loves being told, hey, the way you've been doing stuff to date is no longer good enough and you have to change and do this thing, right? And so what we say in those scenarios is like, what you have to accept is that AI is here and it's going to be impactful, right? And you have to know that you're going to have to move forward and adopt. It doesn't mean you turn on AI everywhere all at once and all of a sudden you're expected to be doing all kinds of things, right? It means you decide, okay, what areas do we want to try this out in first? What types of jobs? Which of our recruiters do we want to give this to so they can play around with it and help us teach the rest, right? One of the things I heard from one of our customers recently is that there was some initial hesitation in the team, when she brought Bullhorn Amplify to it and was like, hey, everyone, we want to start using the screener. We want to start using this to build out job descriptions. There was some initial hesitation, but pitching it to the team as like, this is also an investment in you. We are building out your skills. We're making you a more marketable person, a more successful person. And like the goal here is to keep the people we have and allow all of you to do more, to be more successful. And changing that mindset shift where we're not looking to replace you, we're looking to enhance you and what you can do has helped people get over the hump.
I think at the end of the day, we all want to have better conversations with people who are ready to have the conversation, right? Whether you're on the sales side of things or the recruiter side of things, the challenge of finding the conversation is super difficult. And that's often where you get burnt out, you get frustrated. You don't want to wake up in the morning and do that same mundane task of, well, how am I going to find another person like Nicole today to have a conversation with? If I can wake up on Monday and I know the 15 conversations that I'm going to have this week, that's my personal goal. Fantastic. Let's do it. I'm fired up for the week now because I can just go to work and do what I'm good at, which is having the conversation. And I think that's where a lot of people can sort of start to weave into what that modern recruiter might look like.
Totally. I completely agree. And I think it really has changed the game. We hear that morale across teams improves once they start getting used to it. Of course, there's that like scary initial, I don't know if I want to do it, like jump in. But morale gets boosted because they start to do better. And it snowballs, right? Because the more you use it, it's like that old saying, the more you do, the more you can do, right? And so the more they start to use it, the more they start to see the success. And I think it's not just on the recruiter side either. When you think about candidates and what that experience looks like, right? Because candidates, just like recruiters, are facing all kinds of conversations that they may or may not want to be having, and then all of it becomes easier. So when you're talking to a person, that you're there for a good reason and you're there because you have made it through this process and you're both set up to have a better conversation than you would have otherwise. You also know as a candidate that your resume got the same fair look that everybody else's did because we're no longer constrained by human capacity to look at all the resumes, right? It was easier for you to schedule in the first place because you could do a screener at night when you were home instead of during your day job or, watching the kids or anything like that. It's just more flexible. It's funny that it took this artificial intelligence technology to bring humanity kind of back into recruiting, right? But it is really great.
Yeah.
Like it's allowed us to focus in on relationships, on that real people side of recruiting, which is why people get into recruiting in the first place, right? You don't get into recruiting if you're not a people person.
Right. You had made a comment a little while ago that I want to come back to, which is AI is sort of, you can see the pack pulling apart, right? So we all sort of have we have the industry, and there's a group of 100 companies. There are some who are drastically adopting AI that are pulling apart from the others.
Yeah.
Where do you see that pack continuing to shift in, I want to say 3 to 5 years, but I might even say 3 to 5 months?
Yeah. I don't think anybody could say with confidence what it's going to look like in 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Just don't know, and it's changing all too quick. So
Right.
if we'll call it, the next 3 to 5 months, I think what you're going to see is that companies are going to start, I think especially, all right, so our earliest customers who adopted Amplify 6+ months ago are roughly 6 to 9 months into their journey now. Where they will continue to evolve at this point is not so much in changing their day-to-day processes because they've already done that now. So what they're doing now is they're shifting the goalposts. They're changing their goals. They're changing their strategies, and they're making new plans, right? They're making more aggressive growth plans because they know that their recruiters are going to be able to support that. And they are changing their business strategy, right? Some of them are like, okay, well, we can take on more capacity now. What are some markets we haven't looked at yet? What are some verticals we might want to get into? What are some jobs traditionally we've said, no, thanks, we don't have capacity to handle, but now we can, right? And so I think that it's in that growth piece that you're really going to start to see them pull away even faster than they have so far.
Hey, really quick. Usually this is where I talk about one of Haley Marketing Services. But today, our co-CEO, David, asked me to make a very specific offer exclusive to listeners of Take the Stage and Insights. Candidly, I think he's a little crazy, but here we go. He told me I could offer a $10,000 staffing website for half. That includes one of our proven starter sites, fully customized for your firm, brand new copy, our career portal software, and foundational SEO, all for 2 payments of $2,500, plus hosting and licensing. I got to be honest, the reason he's doing this, he wants me to prove people are actually listening to this show. So if you're thinking about a new website, message me on LinkedIn and mention the crazy website promo from Take the Stage or Insights. One catch, it's limited to the first 7 staffing firms. So don't wait. All right, let's get back to the show.
As the pack pulls apart, certainly there will be some left behind. And, I'm not all doom and gloom, but to me, I think AI is that separating force of, will certain firms be here in 3 to 5 years? I think that's a very realistic forecast. There are a lot of individuals that know their sort of secret sauce and know their secret recipe for success. And I'm worried that not adopting AI, not looking at technology in the way that others are, is sort of a very scary world for some to live in. I hope a lot of firms that I'm talking to now do join the people at the front end of the pack. But I think as a whole, the industry is still kind of lagging behind AI. What do you say to the individuals who are I think there are still people that are skeptical.
Yeah.
Skeptical with making the change and saying, okay, I know I need to be doing this. Where do you get started there?
Yeah. There are a lot of people in that boat. There are a lot of people who are still waiting a little bit. There are people, and I think it makes sense. They're like, caution is important, right? You want to be thoughtful about decisions you're making for your business. I think people are sometimes hesitant to make an initial investment when they're not sure what the ROI is going to be, right? And so I would say that we're kind of at a tipping point now. I think for the last 9 months or so, it's been more of a leap of faith, right? Because we haven't had as much information on how it will impact staffing and staffing firms. We're now 9 months into a process where a lot of folks have taken that leap, and we are starting to really see those results, and we are starting to get those proof points. So I would say if you have held off until now, that's okay. Don't hold off any longer. You don't want to get to the point where people are lapping you,
Right.
as opposed to just being a little bit ahead, right? And I also think, if you look at the recruiting industry as a whole right now, the amount of business that's out there is pretty much the same. And so when you're looking to take a bigger piece of the pie for your own business, like, you're going to be taking it from somebody else, one of your competitors. And do you want to be someone who's taking a bigger piece, or do you want to be someone who's fighting to keep your pie on your own plate? AI is kind of the bigger fork right now, helping people take bigger bites and really being able to reach out and grab a little more. And they're taking bigger and bigger bites every time, right? Because the more you do, the more you can do. Your team gets really motivated, and there's kind of no stopping you once you really get going.
Yeah. Where is the easiest place for someone to get started? So whether we're looking at the Amplify platform or we're looking at just AI in general, when you think about sort of the recruiter seat right now, what's the low-hanging fruit?
I think the easiest one is to invest in an AI screening tool. It's very easy to get set up. Look around. Obviously, I'm biased towards our Bullhorn Amplify solution, but there are a lot of solutions on the market who provide this service for AI screening. It's an easy one because there's no risk to you. All you're doing is having AI screen candidates, and when they're coming in, the recruiters are still taking a look, right? And so there's really only upside to doing it. You've got candidates. You're going to be able to screen or learn more about more candidates than you could before. You're still going to have your people looking at everyone. So no decisions are made by AI then, right? They're just guiding you towards who they think is the right, or who it thinks is the right person for the role. I think that's an easy way to start. And I also think candidates are getting really used to using it. And overall, we've heard really great feedback. I heard from one of our customers recently who is in light industrial. They were really nervous that their candidates would not want to do AI screening, right? That they weren't people who tend to be super, super tech savvy. They didn't really think that they expected there would be some pushback, and they loved it because all they had to do was like press a button and then they can talk, right? And it feels more natural. They're not filling out a form. They're not like trying to type answer questions, and candidates love that they can do it anytime. So I think that's an easy way to start. Yeah. It's low risk.
I had Leah Taniguchi on the show from your team a little while ago, and she had made a comment, and I'm sorry if I get the data point wrong, but I think it's in the Gen Z demo, 80% of people said having a conversation with a voice agent was as good as or better than talking to a human recruiter. And, your example of your LI client who was reluctant or wasn't sure if it would work for their demo, I think what we're finding is that's a preconceived notion that we have that is not holding as true. As we actually deploy the technology, we're learning, whoa, I don't know if people are going to like this. And then we're realizing along the way, they actually really like it. And they can do it at 9:30 p.m. when my team isn't working, or they can do it Saturday at 2 when we're not working at all. Our office is closed. And I think what we're learning is we have our own thoughts of what the marketplace will want or the community will want, and we're wrong in our assumptions.
Yeah, I think that you nailed it. And yeah, Leah has some great stats around this, and she looks a lot too at like different generations and what they're looking for, people across different verticals and what they're looking for. But consistently, what we have heard is, okay, sure, if you had a choice, if someone said, hey, Nicole, you can screen for a job, do you want to do that with a person or via AI? I would pick with a person. I'm a people person. I like interacting, right?
Yep.
If you come to me and you say, hey, Nicole, you can screen with AI or you can not have a screen at all, and like maybe we'll get back to you, I'm going to pick AI, right? And so like that's the reality. I think people are comparing this fictional world in which everybody gets a response and gets to talk to a recruiter. Like that's not the reality. A lot of people end up in a black hole. They never hear back, right? And so from the candidate's experience, it's like, yes, I want to move ahead in this process. I want to make sure that, I'm put forward. And like, yeah, I would love to do it at a time that's convenient for me. And this is actually really natural and easy. I know I'm not talking to a human. It's always very clear. But it is conversational. It's easy. I can see the questions I'm being asked. I can see what my answers are, as they pop up on the screen. I have a chance to ask questions in most cases. And I know that there's going to be follow-up by a person coming through. But I also think, to your point, like today's younger generations who are entering the workforce now are so much more digital than many of us who are a little bit older, that it feels incredibly natural to talk to a camera, to talk to a computer, to talk to a phone. It feels very, very natural, and it's easy and it's convenient. And that is worth more to a lot of people than having to wait and try to, do the face-to-face thing. And like, let's be honest, there are people who don't love face-to-face conversations. It doesn't mean they wouldn't be great at a specific type of job, right? And so this levels out the playing field a little bit.
I will allow you to be a little self-serving on this and talk the Bullhorn Amplify product if you want, or just go down the path of screening if you want as well, just as an initial disclaimer to the listener. Are you saying then, because I am very frustrated with the resume black hole. I've had a couple guests on to talk about it, the candidate experience. I think it's one of the worst things that we do to candidates, and it's not fair. And I know we try our best, but at the end of the day, a recruiter can't be expected to call 1,000 people. Now, yes, we can have automations and we can have technology in place, and I get that. But I think one of the worst parts of the industry in my mind is the resume black hole that we put people in. Inadvertently, and I know we're trying our best and I get that. So are you saying then with Amplify or a comparable product, everyone could have the opportunity to be screened and have a conversation as an entry point into the recruiting process?
That's exactly what I'm saying, because you're no longer limited by human capacity. And human capacity also has a much higher cost than AI capacity, right? And so, yes, you are making an investment in an AI screening tool, but the cost of an actual screen itself is incredibly minimal when you compare it to what you would pay a person for that amount of time, right? And so it really is beneficial. You can decide if you want to screen everybody or if you want to screen only people who fall into a certain category or how you want to do it, right? You have full control over that. But yeah, that's the goal, is that you don't have hundreds and hundreds of people who are submitting resumes that you never even see, right? I think a big goal for many staffing firms is like, okay, we want our database to be really rich, right? We want to have a ton of really great candidates in our database who we know well, who we have information about, who we can match to jobs, right? So what the screening agent does is not only is it giving anybody who applies that fair chance that they get looked at, but it's also then collecting information on those candidates. So maybe if they're not the right fit for whatever job you screen them for, now they're in your database, and we've also pulled in all these extra little nuggets of information that you got out of that screen. And now you have a richer candidate profile that's there in your database ready to go, right? And so that's going to eliminate a whole bunch of other things, like, you can spend less on job boards. You can spend less time going out searching for candidates and work with your much larger, richer pool that you have right in your database, right? It makes a huge difference to both candidates who are now getting that fair shot and also to recruiters who have more to choose from now.
How do we prevent bias in the process? So I'm thinking about the owner listening right now saying, yeah, but if my team isn't doing the screening, I can't trust those robots.
Yeah.
How do we prevent bias in the process?
With a few different, it's not just a one thing that we do. There's a few different things that are really important, right? And so first, I would say when you're evaluating an AI tool, you want to ask that question. How does this tool evaluate bias? Have you been audited by a third party? Can I see those results, right? Bullhorn makes those things available because we've done that. I'm sure others do too.
Sure.
So you want to ask those questions to make sure that company is sort of checking their boxes. And then it's all about how it is applied, right? And so for Bullhorn Screener, for example, we have the questions that the screener can generate for you. You can look at them and say, yeah, I like these questions. I don't like these other ones, blah, blah, blah. You can move those things around. You can decide what you want them to ask. It also, I would say, eliminates some bias because, again, AI doesn't inherently have bias, right? Data that trains it might be biased. Bullhorn has undergone a third-party audit, and so we have already seen that our screener is not adding any additional bias. If data is biased, that could come through in a summary or results, but again, that's inherently a data problem, not an AI problem. And I think there's also that element of you're not replacing people. You're having people do the first pass and you're seeing the information that comes out, right? And so one of the things we do at Bullhorn, so for example, our search and match product, we've just come out with this new feature, which is actually showing the match relevancy. Why was this person matched? Here are the things that the screener or search and match product looked at to decide why they ranked them a certain way, right? So that you can, if you're wondering about it, you can go look, all the information is right there, right? And so when you're having somebody screen with AI, you have a transcript, you have a summary, you can change the weighting of how you want it to assess various elements of the conversation, right? It's about control. So I think it's always a balance with AI, where do you have it move things autonomously, and then where do you have to pull it back a little bit and make sure that you have that human in control. When you can find the right balance, that's how you can feel really confident about the results.
I think humans are probably subconsciously more biased than AI.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just say that stereotypically. And I think even if it's unintentional bias, I still think it exists.
Yeah.
And we try our best, obviously, to not let that impact the recruiting process. But if you have sort of just this flat robotic AI that is just screening for talent and opportunities and characteristics, it to me sounds like a huge opportunity for the industry. But I know just in our listeners and who typically listens to the show, I know I had to ask that question. And I know we need to think about the bias sort of shift that could be happening.
Yeah. And it's a really important question to ask. I think not just because ethically it's the right thing to do, but also because there are plenty of regulations out there. In Europe, there's the new EU AI Act. In the US, in New York, we've got some laws. In California, in Colorado, we have some really important legislation that's coming out around these things. And we want to make sure that we're compliant with that legislation. So like I said, when you're evaluating an AI product to use, you definitely want to make sure that you are, asking those questions and asking them what they do to prevent it. And also, do you have best practices for me as the staffing firm to keep in mind as I'm rolling this out, right? That's a really important piece too. And I think something we've seen with Amplify, or a real benefit, is just the community that we've built. People are sharing information. And so we are learning together with our customers, what works, what doesn't, what helps mitigate certain risks. And we're helping to share that knowledge around.
Hey, a quick pause before we get back to the show, because this is something every staffing leader needs to hear. Most staffing firms are spending a lot on benefits and still only covering about half of their workforce. That's exactly why I like what my friends at Benefits in a Card are doing. Instead of forcing owners into expensive, bundled health plans, they offer unbundled benefits designed for high turnover workforces. Things like free prescriptions through their free RX program, dental, vision, virtual urgent care, and supplemental coverage with no deductibles. The result? You can offer benefits to 100% of your workforce, control costs, and actually improve retention. If benefits have felt like a losing game, check out my friends at benefitsinacard.com and schedule a quick unbundled benefits review. Again, that's benefitsinacard.com. All right, let's get back to the show.
Outside of screening, what's maybe the secondary level of low-hanging fruit in terms of AI integration and AI adoption?
Yeah. I think some of the enrichment stuff that we do is really interesting and very easy to sort of set up. So it's like taking, let's call it like updating a resume. or formatting a resume, right? Like that's something that recruiters will do for candidates all the time. It can take a little time, can take, 15 minutes, 45 minutes, or depending. That's something that can be done in under a minute with AI, right? And so if you're looking at the sort of these small things, like think about the tasks that AI is really good at, which is summarizing, enriching, rewriting, anything that's sort of taking words we already have, giving it a little context and having it make changes. It's very, very good at that. And so think about what are those things that take people time, but that AI is very good at. And so I think, generating resumes or job descriptions are two we hear a lot that are very easy to implement. And again, very low risk, right? Because you look at it and you're going to know right away if it's bad or good. And then instead of having to redo a whole bunch of them, if it's not turning out the way you want, you make a tiny little tweak, boom, 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 it's all fixed across the board, right? Like, so it's another sort of low risk, high reward, very quick win.
In a lot of ways, it's rethinking productivity. It's thinking, and we've said this a few times now, but just sort of to bring it full circle for everybody, it's rethinking. If we all have 40 hours, and let's just accept you have a 40-hour work week, how are you dividing those hours, right? You have an hour a day for lunch, maybe. You have 3 hours a day of screening or sourcing, whatever it might be. Maybe, yes, we're formatting resumes. Maybe of that, we're probably only talking to candidates a small, minute actual portion because we actually have to find the candidates first to have the conversation with. We're doing the admin tasks of scheduling the interviews and scheduling the conversations. I think where I see a lot of the shifting is, I've actually said this for a while, that AI is your personal assistant that is now in your pocket or on your laptop. For me, it's ChatGPT on my pocket, whatever it might be, Claude, whatever you want to use. But whatever is your assistant of choice is up to you. I'm not here to dictate that. But I think it's elevating what it is that you do in the day-to-day to make you better, faster, stronger, and taking a lot of those mundane tasks away so you can focus on what you actually want to be doing. And as a leader, what you want your team to be doing. Right? I can't see many staffing leaders saying, I really wish my team spent more time reviewing resumes this week. I really wish we spent, 25% more time reviewing resumes. I can't see anybody trying to do that. So this shifts that completely and says, okay, let's remove 25% of the resume reviewing to give people more time for those conversations.
And by the way, at the same time, let's increase the number of resumes we've reviewed, right? And so spend less time doing it, but still get a greater result. And I think that's sort of the mindset shift that is so important. As you said, Brad, it's like, how can we change? Productivity is sort of the core nut of all this, right? Like it's the easiest thing to demonstrate ROI with is you're having people do more with the same amount or with less. And it is about taking that individual assistant experience and scaling it across the board, right? And so would your company be more productive if all of your recruiters were using their own instance of ChatGPT to do a bunch of stuff? Absolutely, they would be. But how much more productive are they going to be if you have it embedded into your workflows? They're all working from the same information. They're using similar prompts. All the resumes are being formatted the same way. Everything's on brand. It's all consistent. The candidate experience is consistent, right? Like that's where I think the power of AI lies for staffing firms is in that scalability of adopting something that is sort of a full solution.
You also prevent people from lagging behind inadvertently, right? There's going to be people who are super excited about this, who spend their nights and weekends trying to get really good at it, who love just the art of prompting, sort of those data scientists, I guess, that people just want to kind of experiment with the metaphorical beakers and say, okay, well, what if I do this to my prompting? And those people want to stay up late on weekends and work on this sort of stuff. And there's going to be people who say, listen, I work 9 to 5, man, and I'm going to give it my best shot, but this is all I'm going to do. There's going to be some sort of gap there in the pack because of that. Again, like you're alluding to, though, is partnering with somebody who can do this for you, who can roll out software that's sort of leveling the playing field internally. Make sure that there's no sort of individual lagging behind within your own organization.
Totally. And I think the other thing you can do is you can take those people who are really pumped, who are going to be experimenting and tweaking things and trying all this stuff out, and you can take what they learn and then very easily apply it across the whole team, right? And so people aren't lagging behind, because they're being encouraged to use this technology. They're seeing how their neighbor is doing with it, and they're like, oh my gosh, if I could just, wow, Brad's having a lot of success doing this. Let me give it a try and see if I can replicate some of it. And oh, by the way, great, Brad's prompts have already been filled in here into my workflow, so I can just use the same ones. And then maybe I have an idea. We can go back to you. So we say all the time that when you are working with AI, it is so important to keep having conversations with your team about it, right? Like celebrate the wins, bring people along, especially those stragglers, because they need to want to change. And the easiest way to get them to want to change the way they're working is to show them by example how well it works for other people who are doing the same job they're doing, right? And so, as I said earlier, it brings junior people up to speed a little bit faster. I think a couple of our customers have said that, it typically takes like 6 to 9 months for a junior recruiter to become profitable, to really start making money. That's down to 1 to 3 months using AI. It's much faster because they don't need to have built in a lot of the knowledge that you would need. And they have basically the skills and capabilities of more senior recruiters built right in. So it really is a win-win across the board, I think, both for people who are really excited to lean in and for people who are a little bit more hesitant because it makes it easy to learn.
Are you seeing a mindset shift in the leadership and the companies at the front of the pack compared to the companies that are sort of in the back of the pack?
Yeah, I definitely am. I think companies who are leading the pack right now are ones where leadership has said, like, we are making this investment and, like, by God, are we going to get the most out of it? And so they're really laying down the law and saying, you have to use this. And they are forcing it, but they're also supporting while we do it, right? And so I think you can't just say, okay, here it is. You have to use it at the end, right? You have to say like, okay, here it is. We're all required to use this now. Let's work together. Let's see how we can adopt it. Bring your questions, bring your concerns. Let's talk them through and do it. We actually also had a customer who decided that they had to show sort of with an experiment. They took LinkedIn away from half their recruiters for 2 weeks. And they said, okay, like no LinkedIn for you. You can only use Amplify in our database. Try and be as productive as the group that still has LinkedIn. And the non-LinkedIn group was 125% more productive than the group that still had LinkedIn. Because like when you're to do something, you figure out a way, right? And AI is there really helping you get there even faster. It's really cool to see some of the stuff people have done.
I would also argue that sample group, they were probably just more productive in the work that they were doing. They were more tunnel vision, right? They weren't just looking at a LinkedIn news feed. They weren't subbing into, communities or groups or things like that. They were actually working the database. So it's taking that away, which is, yes, your source of sourcing, but it's also taking away the noise that just comes with social media, which is it can be a dumpster fire.
Yeah,
it's just screaming noise, right? So it's helping there too. But interesting that when you removed a tool and relied solely on the database that you've already worked effortlessly to build, you're just now using it and leveraging it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And we see that across the board, an increase in database utilization, right? Because again, that's less expensive for staffing firms. Like to use the people we have. But again, those people are of better quality and we have more information on them than we had before. And we can also do more with the people we have in there, right? So with a tool like Amplify, you can build campaigns and send them out. You can build nurture campaigns. You can reach out to people and you can do so at scale, but also in a very personalized manner. So just the quality of information you get back from those campaigns is significantly better. Now, in fairness, it's not a live database the way LinkedIn is, right? You don't have candidates logging in and updating their stuff. But it's much easier to keep it close to that. One of our solutions consultants told me the other day that he spoke with a customer who had implemented the screener and they had kind of a creative use for it. They decided they weren't going to use it to interview candidates for jobs. They sent out a screener that interviewed candidates about updates about their life. They basically used it to collect information that then came into a note and then was used to enrich the candidate profiles in their database, right? So it's kind of this way of like using a tool that's designed for one thing, but has the capability to do something totally different, all with the same goal of like more better candidates in the database.
I often hear that staffing firms can't really leverage their database because it hasn't been cleaned, it hasn't been scrubbed, it's incomplete, it's old and outdated. I mean, a data record from 20 years ago or a data record even from a year ago, that's tough to use if you don't know that Brad Bialy still has the same phone number and address and email address, whatever it might be. Like, it has to be a living, breathing entity. It needs to be consistently updated. How can AI I mean, you just gave a great example of using those screener questions to update those records. Are there other ways that we can leverage AI to look at the 20,000 people in our database already and just verify records and make sure things are current?
Totally. There are a few of our marketplace partners who offer this as a service. I think what we have seen is that service of like sort of taking your database and just doing a big like cleanup, that can be expensive. And it's also typically sold as a subscription model. But what we found is what people really need is kind of a one-time, like, let's do it once at the beginning of this. And like that provides a ton of value for years to come. And then maybe a few years down the road, you do it again one time, right? So I think we're starting to see a shift here in the companies that provide that service are starting to rethink, like, maybe this isn't a subscription situation anymore because AI has gotten so good, like this use of the screener, or it's been good at like pulling from notes, from conversations, from emails, and enriching the data that you have. Maybe let's rethink how we actually package and sell this capability of sort of taking everything all at once and going out and pulling it out. But it's just interesting to see, like, it's not just things aren't just changing for staffing firms. Things are changing for all of us, all of the vendors and companies who service them. Like, we are trying to figure out this is a new way of working. So it also means we need to build differently. We need to market differently. We need to sell differently.
Screening, sourcing, resumes, some of the low-hanging fruit. What's maybe the one thing that is just absolutely next level that of a customer or maybe somebody else in the industry that is using AI for that maybe somebody hasn't thought of yet?
I mean, there is a lot of really exciting stuff, I think, that is happening with being able to pull in information from different models or protocols, being able to pull information from not just a single vendor that you're using. So with Bullhorn, with Amplify, we have now the capability that you can ask Amplify questions. Then it will use data from like any database that you have that's yours to pull it in, right? So if you have data that lives in a partner organization or something, it's actually able to pull from that too. That allows you to have like a much better sort of dashboard view of what's happening at the company. And I think, there's some possibilities there, and this is definitely next level. I don't think we have anybody who's doing this quite yet. But think about what this could mean for like executives, right? So like people, some of the execs at a company might not even have a Bullhorn login, right? Because they're not in there all the time. But what if they did have a Bullhorn login and they could use it to sort of look across the board and start making business and strategy decisions with Amplify's help? They could forecast sort of what they think is going to happen. They can pull in competitor information. You can bring in information from the web, but they can also look at their data across different areas very easily in a single dashboard and really just start to make some more interesting, I think, business strategy, company-wide decisions that are future-proofed a little bit more than they would have been in the past. So some of the analytics and insights that come out of this, I think we're just kind of scratching the surface of all of that now.
I think we are too. I know just in the way that I use some different tools, it is very much, as far as I think I'm advanced with it, is still just so entry level. And it's so interesting to me that AI, it's sort of the Wild West, right? How company A is using it is drastically different than company B. And yes, we're trying to level the playing field and provide tools and solutions that sort of help everyone. But even internally, someone's using screening questions one way as opposed to a different. It's so interesting to me how visionary leaders are taking something that is the tool, AI, and making it their own. I've sort of painted the analogy before to AI being like a guitar, right? How I pick it up and how John Mayer picks it up and how Slash picks it up and how my 3-year-old picks it up. We all have access to the same tool that is AI or a guitar. We all can do very different things with it, some more beautiful than others. And right now, to me, as I look at it, there's just so much opportunity with it that I try to jump into that group that's in the forefront of just tell me more. What else can I do with it? Because I want to be that sort of guy with the beakers on the weekends trying to figure it all out and pull the strings and do all of that.
Which is good. We need a lot of you to set the stage and sort of like lead others. Show them what is possible. I mean, you're right. There's so many ways to apply it. It honestly can feel a little bit overwhelming. That's why I think it is important. Like some of the questions you asked me today were really great. Like what's the first place you should start? What's the next place you should start? Because it does feel really overwhelming. And the answer isn't just turn it on and let your organization run wild with it, right? Like, let's be smart about it. We have learned at Bullhorn a ton about how to implement it, how to get your team to adopt it. What are those best practices? What are some metrics you can start to see results in early that helps boost confidence, helps boost morale, helps, with momentum? What are some metrics you can expect to see around 6 months? What can you expect to see around a year, right? And so we're starting to get some benchmarks now that people can kind of measure themselves against. But also, I mean, my number one piece of advice right now is just be open-minded and be flexible. and be open to taking a leap of faith a little bit, because you know it's going to be good. The question is really just how good is it going to be? It's not going to be bad.
Right.
If you're a staffing owner planning to scale in 2026, listen closely. For more than 35 years, Tricom has partnered with staffing owners to support growth without adding unnecessary risk or back office burden. Tricom is not a factoring company. They're an asset-based lender and full-service back office partner, building solutions tailored to your staffing business and cash flow needs. If growth is starting to create pressure around payroll, cash flow, or administration, Tricom provides the flexibility and operational support to help you expand with confidence. I trust their team and have known them for over a decade. To learn more, visit tricom.com and request a conversation to see how they support your staffing business. All right, let's get back to the show.
Nicole, before I get you to our rapid fire round, I want to give you the floor to share a little bit about yourself and what the team at Bullhorn is working on as relates to Amplify.
Yeah, awesome. So I am a product marketing director at Bullhorn. So I'm responsible for go-to-market strategy for all things Amplify and automation and search and match. And I think if you're interested to learn more about what we're doing at Bullhorn, check out our website. We have tons of webinars coming up. We talk about Amplify all the time. And I think the really exciting thing is that today, which is very different from, 6 or 9 months ago, we have so many customers who have been using this who are also willing to sort of shout from the rooftops about the benefits they're seeing, right? And so don't take our word for it, but talk to some of our customers, check us out. We're doing some really, really cool things with AI just being easy to use, embedded where you're doing the work already. And we have really great experts here to help guide your path. So we would love to chat more with you about it.
Perfect. And our quick rapid fire round, I'll start with one book that has fundamentally changed your life.
Ooh, I would have to pick Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert.
Okay.
She wrote Eat, Pray, Love. So it's that author. And she wrote this book called Big Magic, and it is all about creativity. And it is just, the main point is creativity is everywhere. It doesn't come from within. It comes from your ability to grab it wherever it is and pull it in, grab that inspiration. I reread it every January for just a little boost for the year.
Love that. And one piece of advice that you would give to somebody just starting in staffing and recruiting, what are you going to tell them?
I'm going to say, keep your eyes wide open and be willing to test the waters. Just be open-minded. Try it. Ask questions. Be curious, right? Lead with curiosity, but have a bias for action. Don't slow down. Be curious and dive in.
Nicole, it was fun. Thank you so much for coming on this episode of Take the Stage, sharing all of your ideas with us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks, Brad.